Marcel Sabitzer is on his way to Manchester United, and what a transfer there is. Now, when John Murtho first became director of football at the club, he said that his ambition for Manchester United was for us to become leaders in the data science space, mainly in data-driven decision making. And this Sabitzer transfer has data written all over it. And I'm gonna analyze Sabitzer's data in this video to show you exactly why you should be excited, as I am, about this latest Red Devil. Let's analyze. Let me start by explaining my setup over here, because this is crucial for you to understand where I'm coming from and to understand my interpretation of these numbers. So I am comparing 6 players, 2 of which are Marcel Sabitzers. Yes, 2 Marcel Sabitzers. Yes, I have figured out how cloning works. So the first Sabitzer, of course, is from RB Leipzig from the year 2020-2021, one of his best seasons. During that year, RB Leipzig came second in the league, right behind Bayern, which, let's face it, in Germany is like winning the league because Bayern wins it every time. And that was one of his best seasons on a personal perspective. Then, of course, the second Sabitzer is from Bayern Munich this season, 2022-2023, where he's played he's had 7 starts out of 15 games in the Bundesliga, but the stats are going to be per 90, so it shouldn't matter. Then, of course, Christian Eriksen, the man he's supposed to replace at Manchester United. Casemiro, our standout performer at Manchester United in midfield this season. Fred, because why not? And Frankie de Jong, a player who is, of course, one of the best, like top elite midfielders in the world, and a player who many Manchester United fans, including myself, would definitely consider the best option for us this summer as Casemiro's partner in midfield. So let's start off by looking at the goals plus assists per 90 minutes. And the reason I'm going to show you this is just to show you how biased these statistics can be sometimes. As you can see here, of course, Marcel Sabitzer from RB Leipzig is at the top with 0.49 goals or assists per 90, which is actually very good for a midfielder. But then again, as you can see here at Bayern, he's at 0.29, which is kind of not very good. And so a lot of people would look at these stats and then they would say, hey, well, you see, Manchester United are getting a player who is past it. They are getting Deadwood from Bayern Munich. This is a panic buy. This is not the right transfer. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you why that is exactly not the way you should interpret data, that there is much more to numbers than just looking at one statistic like this and just judging players based on it. So the first thing we're going to look at is, of course, looking at shooting. Shooting is extremely important for a midfielder. So the first thing that we're going to notice is that Marcel Sabitzer from Leipzig, but also from Bayern, really loves to shoot. He has extremely tremendous ability at being in the right place at the right time, in being in good positions for him to shoot at the goal. But the other thing is that, more importantly, is that his shots on target per 90 are also extremely high. For example, here at Leipzig, he's got a 0.98, basically 1 shot on target per 90, which is actually 50% more than Frankie de Jong, and about, what is that? That would be 100% more than Christian Eriksen and 200% more than Casemiro, which is huge. But what's even more important about that is that he actually has a high accuracy rate, even though he shoots from further away than all of the other players. So, for example, that's actually 3 yards more than Casemiro and about a full 6 yards on average more than Christian Eriksen. So basically, he shoots from further back and he's much more accurate than the players that we have at Manchester United. This is extremely important. If you remember in my previous video, my analysis for the game against Reading, during Casemiro's second goal, I said that as we are gaining that fear factor at Manchester United, more and more teams are going to give us the respect we are due, and they're going to back off and play deeper against us. The trade-off is that our midfield players are going to have much more time and much more space, which means it's very important to have players like Casemiro, as he's shown against Reading, but also like Sabitzer, who can actually score from outside the box. Now, of course, for a midfielder, another skill that is very important is passing. Now, when it comes to passing per 90s, if we look at short passes, for example, as you can see, all of these players, of course, you have Frankie de Jong, who is at the very top, Sabitzer from Bayern at 91.3% completion rate for short passes, not very far. But all of these players, from Casemiro to Frankie de Jong, elite, no problem with that. Same thing with medium passes. Anything over 81% is actually very good, is like Premier League top 8 teams kind of level. So no problems with that. But here is the issue. When you go into long passes, you realize that Sabitzer, especially during his time at Leipzig, was at 47.8%. And so again, you might look at this and you might say, well, see, this guy cannot pass. He cannot execute long passes. This guy is not Manchester United quality. But what you're going to realize about that is that these stats can only give you a clearer picture if you join them with other statistics. For example, progressive passes. And as you can see, Sabitzer immediately goes to the top of the list. 5.82 progressive passes every game, more than any other player on the list. Actually, even more than Eriksen, who is at 4.36, right? So Sabitzer, basically, what this tells us about him is that while his long ball completion rate is low, he makes more progressive passes than anyone. This tells us that he's a risk taker. He is a high risk, high reward type of player. And look at it. I mean, when you think of RB Leipzig, they are a high octane, gegenpress, fast, direct football type of team. So their players are hardwired to make quick decisions and to always play fast, progressive balls. And of course, with those balls, you are gonna fail quite a bit, right? In this case, half of the time. But here's what I'm gonna say. If you compare his stats to Casemiro, for example, who is at 60%, but Casemiro is making less progressive passes, while Sabitzer is making literally one more progressive pass per game. Basically, what this means is that I'd rather have a player who fails a little more than average, but who also tries with more progressive passes. I don't know if this makes sense for you, but I'd rather have a player who, for example, has 50% success rate with long passes, but out of those 50%, 80% are extremely dangerous. They can result in high quality chances for us, rather than have a player who, for example, like Fred here, you know, with 65.8% or 70%, but whose the majority of his passes are actually passes where he's switching flank to the other side, passes that are, not as dangerous, not as bold as the passes that Sabitzer is executing. And also, it's worth noting that his completion percentage has increased at Bayern Munich. Maybe he has improved as a player, or maybe his role and the instructions that he's having at Bayern Munich are different than the ones he had at Leipzig. At Leipzig, he was the main creative force behind the strikers, while at Bayern Munich, there are players like Joshua Kimmich and Goretzka, even some of their defenders like Mazraoui and Upamecano are very good ball progressors. And then, of course, they have players like Musiala and Müller, and then their wingers and strikers. So they are not really reliant on Sabitzer to create chances. They have much more capable players in that department. And so he's asked to just keep it simple. This could explain his increase in long pass completion rate. But progressive passes, extremely high, very bold, risk taker. This could be a game changer for Manchester United in midfield. Now, let's look at the defensive actions. Now, Sabitzer, again, when it comes to tackles, he's actually next to Casemiro, not too far. But when it comes to tackles won, he actually has achieved and won more tackles than anyone on this list. And that's during his time at Bayern Munich. What's even more important is that he has more tackles than anyone, in fact, twice as many as Casemiro when it comes to tackles in the attacking third. What this shows is that this is a player who is very good at pressing from the front. He's really aggressive with his pressing, he tackles high up the pitch, and he helps his team win the ball high up the pitch. Believe me, think about this. This player is definitely going to revolutionize the way we press, because Christian Eriksen, as good as he was, look at this. I mean, this is abysmal. 0.61 tackles won per game. So Christian Eriksen covers a lot of ground. He's a good technical player, but he's not a good ball winner. And so all of that was on players like Casemiro or Fred. But Sabitzer can actually create, as I've shown you with the progressive passes, but also he's much better defensively than Christian Eriksen. So when we look at tackles plus interceptions per 90, you also see that Marcel Sabitzer is not too far behind Casemiro, and Casemiro is stellar. He's elite when it comes to ball-winning actions, right? And Sabitzer is not too far off. And that's in his time in Bayern Munich, where apparently he's become deadwood and he's not as good as his time during when he was at RB Leipzig. Now, let's look at another statistic, which is actually a new kind of statistic in football. And it's this one, team success. And it looks at expected goals. Basically, what this stat looks at is the time that a player is on the pitch. How likely is his team to score goals, and how likely are they to concede goals? Basically, the logic behind it is that you take the number of goals that his team is likely to score, and you subtract the number of goals that his team is likely to concede, and then you get this number. And when this number is green and over 0, then that means this player, every time he's on the pitch, his team is much more likely to score and much less likely to concede. That means that their chances of succeeding, i.e. of winning games and getting points in the league, increase when this player is on the pitch. So when we look at it, Marcel Sabitzer at Bayern Munich is extremely important for them, i.e. he's getting them 1+89 expected goals every time that he is on the pitch. While players, for example, like Frankie de Jong are also extremely important for Barcelona. Same thing with Marcel Sabitzer at RB Leipzig at 0.78 expected goals. But this is extremely important because it shows that Sabitzer, even though he's not considered a star for Bayern Munich, he's still an extremely essential player for them, i.e. every time he's on the pitch for Bayern Munich, they are much more likely to get points because they are much more likely to score and much less likely to concede. And also, if I ask you as Manchester United fans, out of Casemiro, Eriksen and Fred, if you could rank these three midfielders based on importance, how would you rank them? Well, 99% of you, me included, would say Casemiro, Eriksen, then Fred. And that's exactly what we see here. Casemiro, Eriksen, and Fred. So this statistic really shows how important a player is for their team. And here Sabitzer is extremely important for Bayern Munich. This is definitely a big game player. So what this data analysis of Sabitzer shows us is that he is an extremely energetic player, a very good defensive player who is very good at pressing the ball and winning the ball high up the pitch. He also has the potential as a creator because of his progressive passes and his tendency to play bold, progressive passes, but also he's got an amazing shooting ability, and so he's a threat outside the box. And I have to say that because Manchester United are not willing to spend any money in the January transfer window, I think we're going to have a big summer transfer window. Out of the players who would be available on loan, I think Sabitzer is probably the best option out there. And listen, credit to John Murtho. I mean, he's really doing a great job quietly. And I'm really excited about this transfer. I mean, I can't wait to see Sabitzer in action for Manchester United. And after he plays 2 or 3 games for Manchester, I am definitely going to make a tactical video analysis of his performances, probably him and Weghorst as well, in order for us to better understand the impacts that they are having on the pitch. But what an exciting signing. Didn't see it coming. Just like Casemiro, maybe what we've seen Casemiro doing on the right-hand side of midfield, maybe Sabitzer is going to do on the left-hand side of midfield. You never know. But anyway, I'm really excited. Let's hope that he plays this weekend in the league. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it the thumbs up and cheers.